Good day, Dumelang Sanbanani. This is Marietjie Bothma. Ntomza Zulu, Zinti Ntomza KZN, right here in our studios in South Africa, greeting you this morning with our news. In our headlines this morning, PUN to launch Gaza aid appeal, and Trumpist member jokes killed in a car accident. Displaced children find refuge in South Africa. Now, in our first story this morning, PUN to launch Gaza aid appeal. In Jerusalem, a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas held into a third day on Sunday as mediators spoke to all sides about extending the period of calm after the worst outbreak of fighting in years. Egyptian mediators have been shuttling between Israel and the Gaza Strip, which is ruled by Hamas, to try to sustain the ceasefire, and have also met the Islamic group's rival Palestinian President Mohammed Abbas in the occupied West Bank. Lynn Hastings, the United States humanitarian coordinator for the Palestinian territories, said on Sunday the UN would launch an appeal to repair the damage in densely populated Gaza, where there is a threat of COVID-19 spread. The escalation has exacerbated and already dire humanitarian situation in Gaza, generated by nearly 14 years of blockade and an internal political division. We must also ensure support to continue addressing needs that already existed, including those arising from the ongoing pandemic, they said. Israel has blockaded Gaza since 2007, saying that this prevents Hamas bringing in arms. Hastings said the United Nations had long been asking Israel to stop a blockade and would continue doing so. Palestinian officials put reconstruction costs at $10 million in Gaza, where medical officials said that 248 people were killed during the 11 days of fighting. Medics said rocket fire as a guided missile attack killed 13 people in Israel during the hostilities. Economists said Israel's recovery from COVID-19 pandemic could be curbed by the hostilities. Israel reopened its borders to foreign tourists on Sunday, but said it would take time to revive the tourism industry. Israel admits Jewish visitors on Sunday to a contested Jerusalem holy site where police confrontation with Palestinian protesters helped to ignite the cross-border Gaza fighting on the 10th of May. Now, in sad stories for South Africa music industry, as one of our very beloved and one of the very beloved Trumpist members, Jokes, was killed in a car accident. In Johannesburg, South Africa, record label Kalawa Jazmee has announced the death of its director and fifth member of the Kalawa Jazmee, Trumpist Emmanuel Mutjalifa Matsane, aka Jokes, had passed on in a car accident on Sunday morning. Jokes was killed in the accident after a performance by the Kwaito Legends in Meadowlands. The label said in a press release, "It is with great sadness to announce the death of our director and fifth member of the real Trumpist SA, Jokes of Kalawa, Emmanuel Mutjalifa Matsane. He died on the morning of the 23rd of May after a performance. He had just released a single titled Pantsing Ndlondlo on 14th of May. Rest in peace, Jokes," said the label. Fellow Trumpist member Eugene Mteto told Newsroom Africa this morning that he was actually thought it was a joke seeing all the rest in pieces on the internet. And he actually called him Jokes' wife to find out if it was true, only to find that the news was confirmed. Jokes would not answer his calls, and that is when they realized he was really gone. To the fans in South Africa and to all the fellow Kalawa Jazmee people, of which I'm one of them actually, working with Kalawa Jazmee, we say during this time, you are in our thoughts and in our prayers, especially to his wife and children. Now, in our next story, the worst casualties of the War of Africa are not those who die or have to make do with a missing limb. It is the children. Some of these children shatter the myth that the resolve to live better in the result of the industry of adults. Some of them arrive on our shores unaccompanied. According to statistics made available by the Department of Social Development, 11% of these children come to South Africa due to conflict or war in their country. Among the reasons to research for work and for education, 34%, due to death of a parent or caregiver, 3% to join family in South Africa, 1% on the promise of a better life in South Africa, 1% due to other or unknown reasons. The report notes that to have a meaningful existence in South Africa, identification documents is vital. A variety of rights flow from such documents. It's established a nationality, an identity, and an ability to function with a formal society. For a child, an identification document is crucial in their ability to access the most basic rights and to plan meaningful future, said Ackerman in the report. He added the increasing interest from both the South African government and civil society to develop solutions for migrants and refugee children is welcomed by the SCCT. This study seeks to assist the formulation of solution by analyzing the position of unaccompanied and separated foreign children within the context of refugee and immigration law. Lumka Olifant of DSD said the South African government, through the Department of Social Development, ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1995. We are also signatories to the African Charter on the Rights of Children, and our Constitution obliges us to afford all children with our borders the same right. All children within our borders, regardless of their nationalities, have a right to all statutory services, including education, health, social assistance, and all care and protection services. Some of the accompanied minors are taken to our child and youth care centers so that they can receive all care and protection services. Others are repatriated to their countries of origin. It shows that overall 42% of foreign children had spent over 3 years in South Africa in education systems. Regarding access to education, 89% of the children of school-going age were enrolled in schools in South Africa. The majority of children have spent considerable time in South Africa, with the 70% spending 5 years or more in the country. Children in Limpopo are more likely to have arrived more recently in South Africa. Those in Western Cape have lived in the country for an average of 9 years, and in Gauteng, an average of 8 years. In Limpopo, however, the average time spent in South Africa was 4 years. In an offline conversation, Olifant had hinted if there was time, we would visit the Child and Youth Care Center in Masina to hear their stories firsthand. The SCCT report, since updated in 2020, notes that in Limpopo, the majority of children took the decision to migrate to South Africa themselves, 72% of the children, whereas in Western Cape and Gauteng, only a minority of children decided to migrate themselves at 12%. 60% of foreign children were male and 40% were female. However, in the Limpopo province, 73% of the children were male. The majority of children fell in the age group of 11 to 18 years, which collectively has made up 47% of all children across provinces. In the Western Cape, where typically older at 53, the majority was 16 years and older. These children are born in 15 countries, all of the African continent. Olifant says the DSD does attract requests for relief from non-South Africans. They go through the same means test, so the question of how many are approved is immaterial, as nationality is not a factor when making the final determination. Now, in our next international story, a cable car crash in Italy killed 9 and injured 2 children. In Rome, 9 people have died and 2 children were seriously injured on Saturday when a cable car linking Italy's lake with a nearby mountain in the Alps plunged to the ground. The Stresa Motarona cable car carries tourists and local people from the town of Stresa on Lake Maggiore, almost 1,400 meters above sea level, to the top of the Matarone Mountains. This is the final toll of the accident, as the car was carrying 11 passengers when the disaster happened. Simone Bobbio, a spokesperson for Italy's Alpine Rescue Services from the Piedimonte region, told Reuters. The cable car cabin plunged close to the second last pillar as it was moving up the mountain, Bobbio said, adding there was still no details about the nationality or ages of the victims. Walter Milan, another spokesperson for the National Alpine Rescue Services, told Rai News 24 television that 2 children had been transported by helicopter to pediatric hospital in the nearby north city of Turin. A call to rescue services came around about 100 GMT time from a very high point and was crumbled in the woods below. The Stresa Matarone lift had only recently reopened following gradual lifting of coronavirus restriction. The Matarone's peak is popular among tourists. Panoramic views on Lake Megaro and its picturesque islands, as well as the vista on the surrounding Alps. The cable car service first opened in August 1970. After almost 3 years of works to replace a carb railway, and the journey takes 20 minutes. The dual cable system is split into 2 sections, just over 2 kilometers between Stresa and Alpino, and another 3 kilometers between Alpino and Montarone. It consists of 2 cars in alternation directions, with each one carrying up to 40 passengers. Now, in our next sad story in South Africa, last week we were watching as Displaced mob justice took place that left 9 people seriously injured and 4 dead. In Johannesburg, gory images of the remains of 8 men lying with their hands tied behind their backs with ropes while their bodies are charred beyond recognition have more highlighted the horrors of vigilantism or mob justice in some townships and informal settlements. The 8 victims found in an open field in Honeydew informal settlement known as Zandspruit, Joburg, this week will drastically increase the 903 number of people already murdered as a result of vigilantism in the last year in South Africa, according to the Institute for Security Studies. Witnesses have alleged that some members of the community rounded up the suspects by beating one after another and forcing them to point out their fellow gang members. The men were then marched to the open field, where one resident described a heart-wrenching scene where they were beaten up with everything at the hands of the mob, including stones, some shamboks, hacked with axes and other dangerous objects. It was horrible. They were bleeding and screaming for help while being dragged to the soccer field. The group was actually looking for 12 boys, 3 of whom managed to escape, said a man who seemed unaffected by what he saw. In the aftermath of the rage and mob justice, 8 men succumbed to the injuries already, 4 at the scene while another 4 died in hospital. The survivor is alleged to have been saved after pleading for his hands to be cut, is fighting for his life as he suffered burns on both arms. Angry Zandspruit community feel no guilt over mob justice killing 4 men, attempting murder on 5 others. On Friday, when the Saturday Independent arrived at the scene where 4 of the victims had died, they found a pair of burnt out boots and a blanket, remains of the gruesome killing earlier. Flies were buzzing on top of what was left of the human waste, burnt and formed into a crust on the ground next to the burnt boots. One of the residents on the scene, Spamandla Lulu, said, although he doesn't condone what happened, these boys were very problematic. This has been going on for a while. There are lots of boys from different groups. These boys terrorized the community. My friend was killed by one of these groups called the Triple O's in 2019, he had said. Now, in other news, the Isidimeni finally justice will be served. as we have been following this for a couple of years now. The process of holding the former Gauteng health officials professionally and criminally liable has been extraordinarily slow. The patients were found to have died of starvation and neglect during the relocation to other healthcare facilities. The slow pace of resource for the families has revealed that Sasha Stevenson, the legal representative for Section 27, the Joburg-based Public Interest Advocacy Centre for Access to Healthcare. Stevenson was speaking at a virtual launch of the Memorial and Advocacy website on Thursday. The portals tell the painful story of the tragedy that took place in 2016. The event was organized by the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, a Life Esidimeni Bereaved Families, SA Human Rights Commission, and Section 27. Stevenson said the inquest, which is supposed to start in July this year at the North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria, will be a good opportunity for the families to know that those implicated officials will finally face any criminal charges. Well, that is all I have for you today on this beautiful Monday right here from our studios in South Africa. Do contact us on nonfullflix.com. Go to our website, do follow us on YouTube, and do send us messages on our Instagram and our Twitter accounts. And we still, our thoughts and our prayers are still with Lolo in Nigeria, our correspondent and colleague in Nigeria who lost her mother last week, and also to the South African entertainment industry and the world who knew jokes. We're saying good day and God bless until next time.